joining us online. Welcome to this meeting of Inverclyde Council. This meeting is being held remotely and also in person, and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcast, available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. Do we have any apologies or declarations of interest?
We have apologies from Councillor Law. Roberts, we will now move to an attendance proceeding to declarations of interest. Can the following members please indicate if they're present at the meeting, either in person or remotely? Councillor Armstrong? In the chamber. Councillor Brennan?
Present remotely.
Councillor Brooks?
In chamber.
Councillor Cassidy?
Present in chamber.
Councillor Flaherty?
Present in chamber.
Councillor Crowther?
Present in chamber.
Councillor Curley?
Present in chamber.
Councillor Councillor Daisley? Councillor Hellier?
Present remotely.
Councillor Jackson?
Present in the chamber.
Councillor McCabe?
Present.
Councillor McCormick?
Present remotely.
Councillor Maguire? Present. Roberts Mackenzie?
In the chamber.
Councillor McVeigh?
In chamber.
Councillor Moran?
In the chamber.
Councillor Nelson?
In chamber.
Councillor Quinn?
Present remotely.
Councillor Reynolds? Councillor Robertson?
Present remotely.
And Councillor Wilson.
Present in the chamber.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Thank you, Diane. Members, before we proceed with the meeting today, I think it would be remiss of me as provost if I was not to bring reference to the incident last night at the Holiday Inn at Cartspun, where we had protests against asylum seekers. You will all have received this morning correspondence from the Police Area Commander, Chief Inspector Docherty, describing how that protest turned nasty and violence was directed against the police officers present. Police officers being attacked and police vehicles being damaged is not an acceptable situation here in Inverclyde, and one where undoubtedly a zero-tolerance approach must be undertaken. Arrests were made last night and further arrests have been made this morning. We must, as a council, acknowledge that people do have genuine concerns with regards to immigration, but those concerns must be addressed through the proper channels. I'm sure, members, that you will agree with me that this kind of behaviour has no place here in Inverclyde, particularly as so many from all backgrounds have worked and are working so hard to develop a very integrated and safe community in which for us to live. I know, members, also that you will join with me in passing on our thanks to Police Scotland and offering our full support at this time, particularly to those officers on the ground here in Inverclyde. Members, as is the custom at this meeting, we have in our presence the interim moderator, the Wellpark Midkirk, the Reverend Ian Miller, who has come all the way from Alexandria, not the one in Egypt, to be with us this afternoon. We look forward very much to hear what the Reverend Miller has to say to us here today, and we look forward to being with him on Sunday morning at the kirking of the council. That will be a real test of faith, coming after a football match that will not finish till 4 in the morning. But I would say at this time, in the presence of the Reverend Miller, that I would urge all of you to make an effort to be present at the kirk on Sunday morning. Reverend Miller, please.
Provost, councillors, officials, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me. And that's the first thing I want to say. This is a privilege. It's an honour I don't take lightly. And if I may say to you, both sets of grandparents were born here in this town, grew up here, as did my parents. Dad grew up on Border Street, Mum in East Hamilton Street, and Dad worked all his life in John G. Kincaid. So it means a lot to me just to be here, and would mean a lot to them. However, time of the Great Blitz, the family moved up to Kilbarchan, and that's where I grew up, before I moved 50 years ago to become a missionary to the heathens of Western Berkshire. For my efforts, they made me a free man, an honour I share with Jackie Stewart and indeed Rabbie Burns. My wife says that's very appropriate because I like to drive like Jackie and I'm good at spinning yarns with Rabbie. Today, no sermons. If you want to hear one, come along on Sunday, and Father Tom and I will do our best. I wonder what I would say to you. I'm not sure I'm going to hit the right note, because this is unique, it's different for me, but I want to share 2 stories with you. And the first is about Laughlin, although his mother always corrected me when I called him Lackey. He won a gold medal at the Edinburgh Commonwealth Games, beating Ron Clark. After winning, he went over and shook Ron's hand and apologised for beating him. That was Lackey. When asked what was his greatest achievement, he said, my greatest achievement is that there are folk green up in the port and they're walking about with my wallies in their mood. He was one of the most humblest men that I ever knew. He was a man who achieved greatness, yet always had time for others. As we laid him to rest, the coffin was draped in a saltire that he had nicked when he was a flag bearer at the 1974 Games in New Zealand. And I remember thinking, Lockie, would to God there were more like you. He was a humble man and a good man. And then there's Flora. Born in a wagon to her parents, Betty and John, she was born at 15. And at age 15, she met John. He was a wee bit older than Flora, so he wasn't allowed to be alone with her. It was the way of the travelling people. John went off his travels and said to her, I'll write to you. And he did. He said, I'll see you on your 16th birthday. July came, no sign of Jock. Maybe some of you have already reached for your handcase. But then on the night before Hogmanay, Jock appeared. Flora wasn't too happy. She asked him what kept you, but Jock didn't answer. He said, I wanted to spend the last Christmas at home with my mother before I married my wife. That's you. Flora and Jock were married for 56 years before he passed away, and in those 56 years, we only scratched the surface of what they achieved. They spent the first night, however, in Largs, on the shore, with 7 and 6 between them. Over the years, they built houses, caravan sites, hotels, and scrap camps, travelled the world, enjoyed success, but despite all their achievements, if you asked Jock and Flora what one was proud of, the answer would have been simple. Family, friends, community, love. Why am I telling you all this? I know you're asking that. Because I don't envy your job. It must be frustrating at the time. The temptation to throw in the towel, you get criticised unfairly. There must be days when you wonder why you bother. I hope the reason you stay, whether you're an official or a councillor, is because you care deeply for this area and for the people you serve. If that isn't true, you shouldn't be here. Never forget your roots. Take a leaf out of Lackey's book. Be humble, be open, be accepting. And learn from Flora. She came from a disadvantaged beginning, achieved great success, but never forgot where she came from, never became too big for her boots. After all, as we ken in Scotland, uttering the great leveler, attend is fairer. It brings us down to earth. What matters in your task as councillors or officials is being honest with your constituents, with your work colleagues, and indeed with yourself. You've been called to serve. There's no greater calling. Dare I say it, you're not asked to be perfect. Keep believing in what you do. Be humble, be honest, and be committed, and may God bless you. If you don't mind, I'm just going to close with a prayer. That's what guys and lads do. So there we are. Father God, we pray for this council and for all who work here, whatever their role is. And help us all to remember, and our constituents to remember, that there are people with families, hopes, dreams and concerns. And in these difficult times, for the world, for our country, for this place, we ask that you would bless them and use them to be a blessing to others. So we pray that both councillors and officials will have the custom, courage, the wisdom, the determination to do all they can to bring peace, prosperity and hope to this place that we all love. Amen. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Miller, indeed, for those entertaining and wise words. It certainly sets the scene for Sunday morning, 11:30. There is no excuse at all for any councillor not being there, and we look forward very much to be with you. Now, the Reverend Miller has intimated that he is not able to stay to endure and enjoy the rest of the proceedings this afternoon, and we bid you a enjoyable rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Half 11. We've got another half an hour because of the football game. Item 2 of the agenda is the minutes of the meetings of Inverclyde Council, committees, subcommittees, panels and boards. The meeting of Inverclyde Council held on the 23rd of April 26, page 83 to 88. I will move that that's a true and proper minute. Is there anybody otherwise minded? Thank you. Education Communities Committee, 28th of April, a special meeting, 89 to 90. Councillor Clockerty?
I'll move the true record promise.
Thank you, Councillor Clockerty. The General Purposes Board on the 29th of April, page 91. Councillor Jackson?
Yeah, I'll move the true record promise.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. The Planning Board on the 6th of May, 92 to 93. Councillor McVeigh?
Move this a true record promise.
Thank you, Councillor McVeigh. The Social Work and Social Care Scrutiny Panel, the 12th of May, 94 to 96. Councillor Brennan?
I'll move it as a true record, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan. General Purposes Board, the 13th of May, page 97. Councillor Jackson?
Yeah, I'll move the true record promise.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. The Environment and Regeneration Committee on the 14th of May, 98 to 101. Councillor McCormick, please.
I move the minute as a true record, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor McCormick. Is there anybody otherwise minded? Education Communities Committee, 19th of May, 102 to 108. Councillor Clockerty.
I'll move this as a true record promise.
Thank you, Councillor Clockerty. And the Audit Committee on the 26th of May, 109, 110. Councillor Nelson.
I move this as a true record.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. The Policy and Resources Committee, 111 to 113. Councillor Moran, please.
Oh, so I move it's a true record.
Thank you, Councillor Moran. The Planning Board, 3rd of June, 114 to 122. Councillor McVeigh.
Move this as a true record promise.
Thank you, Councillor McVeigh. And the Local Police and Fire Scrutiny Panel held on the 4th of June, 123 to 125. And I will move that that is a true and proper minute. Is there anybody otherwise minded? Thank you very much. There is, of course, private business held within these minutes. Does any member intend to bring up anything regarding the private business? No, thank you. Item 3 in the agenda is the administrative arrangements, a cycle of council, committees, subcommittees, panel and board meetings to June 2027. A report by the Head of Legal, Democratic, Digital and Customer Service. Mrs. Brown, please.
Thank you, Provost. This report sets out a proposed schedule of committee cycles for the period to June 2027. As always, it's based on a cycle of 5 meetings of the thematic committees, audit committee, petitions committee, social work and social care scrutiny panel, the local police and fire scrutiny panel, and the council. Regulatory boards have monthly set dates, and the licensing board will set its own meeting dates at its June meeting, but provisional dates have been included in the draft timetable. Clearly, the impact on the timetable of the local government elections has added some complexity, with the statutory meeting of the new council proposed for the 20th of May next year, with a compressed first cycle being proposed between the statutory meeting and the summer recess. In addition to this, I would draw members' attention to a few specific points. Last year, the positioning of the audit committee and the petitions committee were swapped to ensure that, as far as possible, the final meeting of the audit committee considered the annual accounts and limited other business only, and it is proposed that this approach is continued. Private meeting of the audit committee will be arranged with the council's chief internal auditor and external auditors following the 2026 recess and before consideration of the audited accounts. Second, years meetings of the Education and Communities Committee considered communities business at 2 p.m. and education business at 4 p.m. There has been some feedback about this approach, and it is proposed for reasons of efficiency that the communities business will be held at 3 p.m. moving forward, with the education business remaining at 4 p.m. This approach will be monitored by officers and refined as necessary. In addition, the Inverclyde IGB will meet on the 22nd of June this year to agree meeting dates, and the proposed dates are set out in the timetable. However, I must make members aware of one change, and that is the proposed meeting date of the IGB of the 11th of January 2027. It is now instead proposed for that to be held on the 18th of January 2027, and that will have no consequential changes to pre-agenda dates, etc. Happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Mrs. Brown? I don't see any online. Can we agree the recommendations on page 1? Thank you. Item 4 on the agenda, the finance strategy 2026 to 36, the 6th monthly update, the report by the Chief Financial Officer. Mr. Forbes, please.
Thank you, Provost. The report provides Council with details of the updated finance strategy for 2026 to 2036 for review and approval. This is the latest revision of the Council's financial strategy and has been prepared to help provide clarity on the financial challenges which need to be addressed by the Council in order to achieve the successful delivery of the Council Plan outcomes. The strategy includes analysis of the UK and Scottish economic forecasts over the next 5 years, but also notes that most of these were published prior to the current conflict in the Middle East and its inevitable economic impacts, including increased inflation and higher than anticipated cost of borrowing. These will need to be carefully monitored over the coming months. Significant challenges have also been identified in relation to projected demographic changes, with population reductions anticipated across all age groups, with the exception of older people. This will impact on both the share of Scottish Government funding which the Council can expect to receive and on the demand for services. In response to issues highlighted by the Council's external auditors and Audit Scotland, at paragraph 7.12, the strategy highlights a range of options which Council will need to consider when addressing future financial sustainability. In addition, section 8 of the strategy provides details of the key performance indicators through which all local authorities now measure and report their financial resilience. As noted at previous strategy updates, an unbudgeted cash flow cost has been identified in relation to delivery of the City deal. Due to the increased cost of borrowing, this has now been projected at 1.899 million over the period to 2034-35, and the report notes that this will need to be addressed as part of the forthcoming 2027-28 budget process. It is recommended the Council approves the updated financial strategy, including the updated funding models, and notes the mid-range funding gap of £11.5 million over the period to 29-30. As always, Provost, happy to take any questions.
So thank you, Mr. Forbes. Do you have any comments, members, or questions for Mr. Forbes? Councillor McCabe.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Bond, for presenting the report. I've got a couple of questions. Setting page 39 is the mid-range scenario that we're looking at. Obviously, we've set a provisional budget for 27-28. And I think the intention is for us to look at another 2-year budget, setting another 2-year budget next February. So we're looking at a £6.2 million gap for 28-29. So it'd be useful for members to understand when we're going to start looking at the 28-29 budget and what sort of challenges that will present to us. And maybe if you could comment also on the Accounts Commission report that was published today, and obviously giving an overview of local government finances in Scotland, and it would be helpful to sort of hear what your sort of thoughts and comments are on that report and how that might assist us in addressing the challenges that we are undoubtedly facing, obviously, in the coming years.
Oops. Thank you. Through you, Provost. In terms of the mid-year budget scenario, yeah, we are looking to do a 2-year budget again, so that'll be 27-28 into 28-29. And the current plan is that we'll be looking for the Members' Budget Working Group to reform after the summer recess and start considering the implications in there. Obviously, as indicated, we already have an indicative budget set for 27-28. But there can be movements in the assumptions that was built on as we move through towards the end of the year, and we'll only find out about the financial settlement for 27-28 towards the end of this calendar year, possibly into the start of next calendar year, and we await the timetable from the Scottish Government with that. That obviously time extends or accentuates the uncertainty. 28-29 then adds an additional layer of uncertainty round about the progress of Scottish Government funding and therefore subsequently Inverclyde Council funding. As I highlighted in the finance strategy, one of the biggest challenges that we face as a council are the demographic pressures. The main funding allocations to Inverclyde Council from the Scottish Government are driven by a wide range of indicators, but primarily this is population based. And if our population declines relative to the rest of Scotland, we receive a lower share of available funding, which will obviously lead to additional challenges when we're looking at the longer term into 28-29. In terms of the report that was published this morning, so that's the Local Government Budgets 2026-27 bulletin published by the Accounts Commission. So this is a retrospective report that's looking back at the budgets that were set across the 32 local authorities in February and March of this year, and it highlights that the combined budget gap across Scotland was £529 million for 26-27. In terms of Inverclyde Council, members will remember that we had a budget gap of £4 million at March, and we bridged that through a combination of savings, increased fees and charges, increased council tax, and a small use of reserves. One of the main messages highlighted within the report from the Accounts Commission is the reliance that some councils still have on non-recurring means to bridge the budget gap. And thankfully that wasn't an issue for the council in 27, but is a larger issue in 27-28 and may become so going forward if we don't manage to identify recurring transformation activities and savings that can be brought forward to reduce the overall burden on the council taxpayer. The report itself highlights many of the same issues which this council considered when we set the 26-27 budget and council tax back in March, and these same issues continue to be featured in the finance strategy that's before members today. This includes a real terms increase in revenue funding, but unfortunately included significant additional expenditure commitments, resulting in what at the end of the day was a 1.2% real terms reduction in core funding, and that situation is unlikely to improve going forward in the future years. In addition to that, we had a reduction in general capital funding of 2%, And again, this is projected to increase as we go into future years, presenting additional challenges for this council as we try to maintain our asset base. So we need to look at the footprint of our asset base, but also the level to which we maintain it and how we fund that maintenance. Because if we're not receiving funding through the Scottish Government, the only alternative route is to identify funds internally or to seek borrowing. And as I've already mentioned, the current situation globally has resulted in significantly increased costs of borrowing. The report highlights a number of factors that local authorities should be considering as assessing the budget, and I can confirm that I've reviewed that list of factors today, and we have ticked every single one of those boxes. That's exactly the factors that this council has been considering for a number of years and continues to consider as part of this finance strategy.
Thank you, Mr. Forbes. Councillor Moran?
I thank Ross. Just going forward, we're talking about maybe 27, 28. The new cabinet secretary for government efficiency, I think it's called, I think he was one there later, and he is maintaining there's still a lot of savings to be made within local government. And he's talking about, you know, once again, join with our colleagues in Renfrewshire, whatever, you know, and having joint several. I know we do share after the board, but going forward, where do we see these savings? We're probably got to the board now, but we're beyond the board now. So where would we see these savings? You know, and has there been any talk from the government yet for us to talk to other councils to share these back office tasks? What they say it's there, the savings there. All we just to do is take it. It's a tree of savings, just to pick what we want. So has there been any talk going forward of what he's saying? Nationally, on the national TV, there is savings to be made. And we can recognise this of what he said.
Mr. Forbes, can you help Councillor Moran there?
Yeah, again, through you, Provost. The County Commission very helpfully at the end of May published a separate report on delivering for the future, which addressed the very topic of transforming public services in Scotland. And this identified the need for sustainable change and transformational redesign of service delivery. So there's no specifics in there. They're not giving us a pathway or any significant hints on what they would expect us to be delivering in terms of transformation. It's up to each council to look at their own operating structure and the opportunities that they have to transform. So that includes a number of choices round about delivering services. Do we deliver the services in-house? Do we outsource them? Do we operate jointly with partners? Or do we actually consider ceasing or limiting the service delivery, which is obviously the nuclear option? We need to work with communities and trade unions to develop the ideas and the approach. And there's already been work done in this council round about delivering differently programme, the savings work streams which are reported regularly to committee. And we have some shared services and partnership opportunities which we've already entered into. In my own area, just recently we've an internal audit, but we are obviously open to ideas across all services. And obviously we need to consult with community and trade unions, as I say, to make sure that we take them along in that transformation journey. So the main message coming from the Scottish Government, and the question has been posed since the new government was formed, as to how they would like to see local government transforming. And it really has been about the ball's been passed to us, and it's up to us now to come up with the ideas.
Thanks, process.
Thank you, Mr. Forbes. Challenging times ahead indeed. I see the Chief Executive has his hands up. The Chief Executive is joining us online today. Mr. Jemison, please.
Provost, through you, just to add to what Mr. Forbes has indicated, public sector reform has been a standing item for a number of years in respect of discussions between Solace and COSLA. These discussions have been going on more rapidly in recent times, and we're looking at all kinds of opportunities as to where we can work collaboratively in order that we can transform the role of local authorities going forward. And in due course, we'll be bringing appropriate reports to members for consideration.
Thank you, Mr Jimison, thank you. Councillor McVeigh, please.
Yes, thank you, Provost. Just to follow on from Councillor Moran's point, recently the audit committee, the auditors, or external auditors were at the audit committee, and one of the recommendations that is we have to look and try and balance budgets further down the line, which probably needs cuts, and if you listen to what the Accounts Commission is saying today. So if we don't know what the service is going to be 3, 4, 5 years ahead, that's going to be very difficult. And I'm just wondering if officers maybe give advice whether that we're going to go down that road, or is it better, or their advice just to carry on as we have been doing, planning 1 or 2 year budgets rather than 3 or 4 years down the line when we're not even going to know what the service is going to be. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you. Mr Forbes, is there any scope for that?
Again, through you, Provost, that's exactly what this finance strategy is attempting to do, is to provide a medium and longer term view of the financial challenges facing the council, and to focus members' attention on the decisions that need to be taken in the short term in order to effect change in the medium and longer term. The challenges are laid out in the report at paragraph 718, and I think earlier at 712. There's a number of areas listed where the areas that we need to look at. But the biggest challenge in order to provide substantial change to the financing of local government is going to have to come from transformation agenda. And that's an area that we can't defer if we are doing just 1 2 year budgets and kicking the can down the road, as it were. That has no long-term benefits for the people of Inverclyde, and we need to look at longer-term strategies, and that includes transformation in order to address these issues in the short term to get long-term gains.
Thank you, Mr Forbes. Councillor?
Yeah, thanks. And the report is very well laid out, but I'm just wondering, can we get into the detail at this stage of potentially accepting cuts 3 or 4 years down the line? As in specific detail, what would address our members' budget work group now? Are we going to look at that and say, well, we're not going to cut it this year, we're going to cut it in 2 years' time and best and provisional? Just are we going to get into the nitty-gritty at this stage, looking 2 or 3 years down the line?
Again, through you, Provost, that's really a matter for the members on the members' budget working group to decide the scope that they're wishing to discuss and look at. So obviously options, we will be looking as officers to bring forward options that address both the short-term known or assumed gaps, but also to address the longer-term challenges facing local government generally and Inverclyde Council specifically. But it really is a case of we can generate the ideas, and it's up to members' budget working group as to set the agenda, discussing how longer a view they're willing to take and to discuss.
Thank you, Mr Forbes.
Thank you, Provost.
I'll bring in the Chief Executive once again, Mr Jimison.
Through you, Provost, Mr Forbes answered the point I was going to make. But in terms of the members' budget working group, Councillor McVeigh, we do have to look specifically at medium and long-term savings. This has been highlighted, as you know, from the external auditors. It's also something which the Accounts Commission will raise in their letter to the Council going forward. And it's something that we are going to have to deal with in the relatively short term, looking at the longer term.
Well, thank you, Mr Jimison. I don't see any more lights on. I don't see anything online.
Provost, can I just say, maybe I'm trying to get something, but on that interview, he did say that there was efficiency to be made, and he's looking at the fire and the police board is a good example of savings, which he said was savings. We also say that, you know, the number of health boards has got cut down as well. 2 health boards from all Scotland, with the tenant one, I'm not too sure. But also, he's asked specifically about local government organisation. He would not give a guarantee that they're not looking at reducing the number of councils. And that would be the end of the world for us. We had this fight years ago with fought to save Inverclyde. And I hope they don't go down this road, but I'm just warning here now, he would not categorically deny that they're not looking at that prospect of reducing the number of councils in Scotland. And that's something we don't want to see. Definitely not here in Inverclyde.
Thank you, Councillor Moran. Councillor Jackson?
Yeah, it's just the Bob is just kind of cut to the chase here. We hear a lot
words and terms used that we're facing over the next 10 years. But this public sector reform, you know, it's going to lead to politically driven hyper austerity, because when it started off with an estimated 11,000 possible job cuts, perhaps the number thrown about, it is now risen to an estimated 27,000 public sector job cuts across country. That's a massive amount. And the fact how much it's risen in 6 months from 11,000 to 27,000, how many jobs have been lost when it comes to the end of this. You're talking about £10 billion deficit. These numbers are just crazy. So these are going to have absolutely devastating effects on the workforce and the communities within Inverclyde. So it's just to give some kind of cut to the chase and show what these numbers are going to drive to. This is going to be devastating, and your communities are going to suffer. And this is politically driven. This is going to lead to hyper austerity in Scotland like we've never seen before.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Does anybody else wish to make a contribution? Then can we agree the recommendations on page 11? We now go to page 73. Which is a notice of motion by Councillor Brooks. Forces Children's Rights Charter. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you very much, Provost. I suppose on a material note, that last contribution, although valuable, obviously was very depressing. Provost, let me make 2 points before I reflect on the charter itself. Firstly, 9 years ago, when I was first privileged to represent my constituents here in this chamber, I wouldn't have brought a motion such as this. I've been more interested in a gritty motion, something that I will punch, something that said something, rather than a charter. What does that say? But you know, every day is a school day. In the last 9 years, I've learned, and hopefully we've all learned. I better understand that what we do here can set a tone. It can offer a direction of travel for council, and particularly our staff, who obviously make everything happen here at Inverclyde Council. Secondly, Provost, although the Forces Children Scotland have their names in this charter, it's not really theirs. The charter has been created and developed by the children and young people themselves, people who have lived the experience of being a Forces child. So to the charter. Inverclyde residents, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, not Mr. Wilson, Inverclyde residents, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, are veterans. They've both served with the senior service, the Royal Navy. And they tell me of the first-hand experience that they have of working with Forces Children Scotland. As they've navigated service life in the Royal Navy and the supporting of their children through educational systems. A real-life experience of Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, and the stories that we have from the Forces, children and young people have motivated me to bring this motion before colleagues today. On page 82 of your papers, one of the 10 provisions of the Charter reads, "I am proud of being a Forces child, and that identity should be protected." Under the Ukrainian settlement programme, Homes for Ukraine, Ukrainian children and young people were welcomed into schools. The story is told of one primary school teacher who explained to the class the sensitivities of having new classmates from war zones. And as such, at my news time, do you remember in primary school you had a news time when you could tell your classmates? So the sensitivity of news time, that they should not talk about conflict in Ukraine or wars that they had seen on the television news. This affected a Forces child who was in that class, who at that very young age became concerned and anxious about whether they should be proud of their serving parent, and whether their identity as a Forces child should be hidden. It caused confusion, the right intentions of the school teacher, and maybe missed the reality for the Forces child. Finally, Provost, the second story. A secondary school pupil tells the story of their class being sent a homework task. It's a long time since you were sent a homework task in school, Provost. And on the Friday afternoon, the media studies teacher said, over the weekend, create a video of the skills and techniques that we've learned in class today, and on Monday, when we're back in the classroom, we'll watch the video and we'll see if you learned the techniques from media studies. But that weekend, for the first time in months, their serving parent was returning home from Armagh, or for Armagh. Although I'm sure the teacher would understand, the pupil didn't want to let class down or let himself down. They didn't want to be different. They loved media studies and they wanted to make an exciting video. But spending quality time with the family, with a serving parent, the family meal out, the stories they wanted to share with the parent, just spend time with them or make a video. The dilemma that was laid before a child. Were they disadvantaged for their parent service? They felt that the people who there didn't understand the Forces life in the way that had affected them as a secondary school pupil, which is one of the 10 provisions again set on page 81 of your papers. So, Provost, 2 stories, and a story from an Inverclyde family of quality of service that a charter would bring. On page 74 of the papers, the motion is fairly clear and hopefully non-controversial. The motion asks us to endorse and adopt the charter to support continuous awareness of the needs of the armed forces children and young people when implementing policy across council services and with our partner organisations. Communicate the council's support for this charter to our schools and relevant community partners, and facilitate the opportunity for Forces Children Scotland to engage with children's services planning and the Forces Children's Right Charter. Provost, I'm pleased to move this.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Councillor Wilson.
Provost, I'm delighted to second that motion. The Forces Children's Rights Charter. First of all, I would just like to compliment Graham on the job he's done as a veterans champion. I've seen him at close hand. He's away meetings in Edinburgh, Stirling, Glasgow, everywhere to do with veterans. He also has meetings here in Inverclyde, breakfast meetings, lunch meetings. He's there at everything. He's done a tremendous job. One of the very great things that he's done, which is an extension of his job, was his idea to invite the Royal Regiment of Scotland to have the freedom of Inverclyde. And I was particularly pleased to see that Councillor McPaid, the leader of the council, yourself, Provost, backed that. And I think that'll be a wonder event when it comes to Inverclyde. And also, be slightly political, it puts us in a very, very good light compared to another larger council near here, where 2 parties within that council, the SNP and the Greens, voted down a motion to give the freedom of that city to the Royal Regiment of Scotland. And that was a city that in 1914 sent 200,000 men to the First World War, mainly in the HLI and the Highland Light Infantry. We recruit here to the Argyles, Glasgow recruited to the Highland Light Infantry. That was a city that gave 200,000 men, sent them into battle. So I think that what you've done, Graham, has shown a very good light in Inverclyde. And your speech there, I don't need to add to what you said about the Forces Children's Charter. And Provost, I'm very, very happy to second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. And I would associate myself to your remarks regarding Councillor Brooks's contribution to the veterans and armed forces. Councillor McGuire.
I've changed slightly because I didn't feel you write anything, but just in your shows I have slightly augmented what I was going to say. So I'll say that on the shows part of what I'm going to use. So there, I welcome this charter. I think it's it's quite stark. It kind of shows you kind of breadth of ways that forces life impacts children and young people in our area. And there are so many people in our area who have and are currently serving within the forces. I know some of them in council and as my friends. They're doing a job that many of us here know is dangerous, but we can't actually imagine or comprehend what their lives look like when they go to work. I feel really terrible about the stories that we told. There's so many different ways. It's a careful balance. You've got two children who have had war, conflict, touched their lives in very different ways. One that has a parent that goes away and they didn't get seen. Another who's had to flee their home, maybe with their parents, maybe not with their parents, because of war. But both children deserve to have their needs met, to be able to express themselves in a safe way that allows them to thrive as individuals. There's a couple bits of the charter that I think are really important that I would quite like to see if we could maybe get an officer's report back on, obviously if you could accept that, just around adults who help me understand about forces life and make an impact on my well-being. And throughout every single different bit of the charter, it's all about understanding forces life. So what I'd like to know is what will we do to help our staff, people that are making policy decisions, understand forces life a little bit better, because that's literally the thread that runs through this is make sure that we can support families, we can support children, we can make sure that they're having their needs met. I understand the forces life a bit better, so I was wondering if we could maybe have that, not as an amendment or anything like that, but just as part of this charter that we have a report back at some point to help us understand how we're going to help upskill our staff that are making decisions that are going to affect children in this way, just because without that knowledge, I don't see how we can build this, and I want this to be sincere from other people. So thank you, Graham, for bringing this to council today, and I hope that's an okay request.
Thank you, Councillor Guard.
Thank you, Provost. First of all, I think Graham doing himself a disservice. I think this probably is nitty-gritty. It's important that we as a council actually have these charters and actually look at how we can actually lead the community of Inverclyde. And I think something like this charter and other things that we can actually look at is using our position as civic leaders to drive and improve the lives of our citizens, no matter if they're forces children or children who have experienced conflict, is important. So I think this is a nitty-gritty sort of thing. And as the SNP group are very happy to support this. I think it's an important measure. And I'll just touch on Councillor Wilson's point. We have also the SNP are very pleased to support the freedom of Inverclyde and giving to rural region Scotland. I think it is an important mission, it has played an important role in our society, and it will continue to play an important role in defending Scotland and the wider UK and Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Lots are most appreciated. Councillor Ryan?
I thank Provost. I do support this, and maybe I could bring a kind of story like Graham's. And it's a young person I know who parents were serving the British Armed Forces, and they split up, as a lot of people do these days. And of course, they went separate ways with different partners. That young person found herself back in Inverclyde dealing with her maternal grandparents. And to our people here, was a stranger, she just appears out of nowhere in our community. Paul didn't know where to go for help. This charter will give her something now where she'll be given rights and people will need to know about her. And she's a young woman. She's probably the only one in that position, because I know quite a lot of people who are in the forces and no longer live in Inverclyde, but the families do, and maybe some of their children do as well, and they've never had any help like this before. So I really do think it's a great development forward to give them the same opportunities and chances as everyone else in our community. So thanks, Graham.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Is there anybody else? Councillor Brooks, would you like to this final one?
Yeah, thanks very much. So thank you for the kind words across the chamber. I've also with Ms Brown because we've had a place. I'm not too sure I'm at the final point of lost my paper, I've lost my papers open, but the facility and opportunity for the forces children to engage with children's services and planning. And so if we are giving, if we approve this today, Provost, the facility there would obviously help our officers do that, do what you suggested. The fact you've asked for a report back And I thought I would the education communities, again, I look for guidance from Ms Brown, should anything be changed here. So to accept it would be really good for us to work out what this means. I'm not too sure whether any wording has to be changed here. So Provost, just I'd like to thank colleagues for supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Councillor White?
Yes, thank you for letting me come back in. If we're going to be working with Scotland, I'm sure that will mean that understanding will be built between our staff through us liaising with them. So if that's the case, I'm happy for that to be the main group that we hear back from this. Thank you, just don't want to complicate things.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. Members, can we agree to the notice of motion by Councillor?
Agreed.
Thank you. That brings this meeting to a close. I thank the admin staff for their preparation for the meeting. Thank officers for their work and your attendance here, members.